Good afternoon, and welcome back to Moscow Domodedovo. We see here aircraft 77105, and today the weather has cooperated. We are clear to go, and we are just about ready to go as well. The flight engineer and the second officer or second pilot have already climbed up into the plane and gotten the preparatory arrangements completed. All that's left is some housekeeping, but everything is aligned. The APU is running, air conditioning is set, so all we got to do is hop in and get the show on the road on the flight to Magadan. So we are here in the virtual cockpit, and we can see here that our INS is aligned. We have to just set it to the Rulenie regime, and it is now set, and we can now finish the flight preparation, set frequencies, and so on and so forth. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to be covering in the next 5 to 10 minutes is pretty similar to the stuff that was already covered in the last video. So if you want to skip ahead to the taxi takeoff section of the video, here's a timestamp right in the middle of the screen, so you can skip ahead to the part where the fun begins. Now, that having been said, there are some housekeeping items, just the flight preparation that I didn't cover in the first video that I do want to cover here. So first things first, the way Soviet aircraft are flown is not by QNH, it's by QFE. Most of the procedures, even in Russia today, have a separate table for QFE conversion. You can see this on Jepsen charts and what have you. And that's because that was just the way they flew. They said QFE, and their procedures on departure and arrival were based on QFE readings, which means field elevation. So you can see my altimeter here is set to 0, even though the field elevation for Moscow is not 0 meters. It is, in fact, if I can look up my chart here, the field elevation for Moscow is 600 feet, which is about 150, 200 meters, give or take. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we've already set up the comms panel. Up here on our number 1 comm, we have 1119er. I'm actually going to change that to our comm 2, so we can set up the VOR DME corrections. But what you want to do is set your ILS for your departing runway. In this case, we have winds from the north, so we're going to be departing 32 right. You want to set your ILS for your departing runway. In case of emergency, you need to come back on your nav1. Set your departure course as well, or your ILS course here on the Kurs VPP window. And you would also set your, in this case, we're doing an NDP or NDB SID, excuse me. And so we have our NDB set on our first channel for the ADF. And on the second channel, I have the outer marker for the ILS. And typically, Soviet aircraft would have the outer and inner marker for the ILS of their departing runway set on standby NDB. Now, all that having been said, like I said, the APU is running. It's all good. We just want to make sure here that our INS is aligned. It is aligned. Our present position is true and correct. We can start preparing here. Set the program, PPM1, confirm. And it switches to waypoint 1. That's good. We set to aerodrome 2, our landing aerodrome. That's good. Let's set the automatic sequencing. So 7-2. We're going to go from waypoint 01 to 10. Automatic sequencing set. Turn the code 07001 to activate the tracking on the INS on. Turn on dead reckoning. We can also go ahead and turn on, let's see, our VOR correcting 1133. That's set. VOR DME set. Light extinguishes. We go to Delta Z. Correction on. Correction of coordinates is engaged. And now we can switch this to program and execute. Oh, and I was remiss to set up our emergency fuel. There we go. There we go. So that's all set. And distance to Magadan is 5,907 kilometers, I think, because of the correction here. So, all right. Okay, so let's talk about our taxi out and SID. So we are in the southwestern stand here for Moscow Domodedovo. I'm looking at the Jepsen chart here. We're going to take taxi route Hotel 1, turn right on Tango 2, follow all the way down to the end, hold short at Bravo 8, and we'll do our preliminary before takeoff checks, enter the runway, take the turnaround there at the end, and line up so we get the most runway ahead of us. So we have a takeoff weight of 198 tons, and as such we will use full power on takeoff. That's 90 degrees on the thrust gauges here on the right, and our takeoff speeds are going to be a VR of 360, a liftoff speed of 380, a V2 of 400, and our decision speed is going to be 255 kilometers an hour. So V1 255, VR 360, and our V2 is 400. We're going to be climbing out at 400 kilometers an hour, and above 200 meters we can retract the nose cone, but we're going to keep it in just for the sake of good outside visibility. We're good to keep the nose cone at the 11 degree position up to Mach 0.9, but we need to stay at 400 kilometers an hour or below 440 with the canards extended, and we retract the canards in straight level flight above 400 meters and below 440 kilometers an hour. Now for the departure sequence, the departure we're going to be flying today is the Cartino 32 Whiskey departure out of runway 32 right. So we got a Jepson chart here for Moscow, Russia, uniform Delta Delta. It's a SID, chart index 30-3 hotel, made March 29th, 2013, and effective April 4th. Airport elevations 593 feet. We've already discussed we're going to be using QFE, and the frequencies as required here. So we're going to be departing runway 32 right up to DME 6.5 nautical miles. That's 12 kilometers at or above 1,600 feet, or 1580, which is going to translate to 300 meters on the QFE or the radar altimeter. And after 12 kilometers, we can turn right direct to the Cartino NDB, which is actually coincidentally our initial fix here on the INS. And from then, we'll proceed en route as required, cycling the waypoints as necessary. So like I said, taxi route Hotel 1, Tango 2, Bravo 8, and then the Cartino Whiskey 32 departure. And departure, of course, is going to be 316. That's 316 is a magnetic, but the as you know, the T-144 flies on mostly true heading. So that's with a magnetic deviation of 10 for the airfield. That's going to be a true course of 326. So let's go ahead and set that on our heading indicator here. 326. All right, and we're ready to start. So let's go ahead and turn on our equipment up here. The no smoking, seatbelt lights, exit lights. The pitot heat can stay off. Temperature skin gauge can come on. The standby gyro can come on, and other avionics. AOA indicator, max, minimum, neutral. Nav lights, beacon can come on. The pitot heat stays as required. Landing lights and taxi light, which keeps off. Landing gear, brake cooling fans can come on. Further avionics. Control light is good. Almaza system is working. RSBN course MP SDK is on. Nose wheel steering closed. We'll keep it at 8 degrees. BKK armed. And test the deflection. Good. And we're ready to start. Beacon is on. Remove the passenger stairs. And we have APU on the bus. APU is running. We can go ahead and turn off the packs and the APU air. Pumps are all on. Everything's looking good here. We are good to start. So we'll start in the sequence 2, 3, 4, 1, 2 and 2 selected. We can turn on the automatic engine ramp controls to on all engines. Reset the generators for the engines. We're going to do generator 2 indexed. Start the starting panel. Standby pump to engine 2. Low pressure light goes off. Starter N2. Waiting for 15% on the N1. There's 15%. Fuel. Light off. EGT. Fuel pump to main. Pressure comes up. Generator online. Good output. Go on the bus. Light goes out. Light goes out. Light goes out. Good start on 2. And I forgot, let's set up our fuel gauge here. We have 93 tons, 0.2 on board. 93.2. Alright. And now we can start number 3. 3. Standby pump on 3. Start 3. Generator 3. Spooling up. There's the frequency, there's the hertz, there's N1, there's N2. 15% fuel. Light off. EGT, N1, fuel pressure, oil pressure, fuel pump to main. Starter cutout. Generator can come online. EGT rollback. Lights extinguish. Good start on 3. Going to 4. 4. Standby pump to 4. Generator 4. Starting 4. N2. N1. Good output on the generator. 15. Fuel. There's light off, EGT, all that good stuff. Generator 4, rectifier. Good start on 4, going to 1. Alright, that's 4 good lights. Starter panel can come off. Transformers 1 and 2, 1500, 500, closed and guarded. APU off the bus, close the APU bleed. Stop the APU. Bleeds can come back on. APU is off, power off. No lights here, fuel flow, everything happy here. Fuel is all on the main pumps. We got fuel indication, all the good stuff. And the AC system is good, pressurization is running. And we are good to taxi here. We can start powering up the hydraulics. The autopilot channels. Finish switching up the positions here. Close this, guard that. It's all good. Taxi light. Nose cone to the 17 degrees. And extend the canards. Remove the parachute cover as well in case we need to abort the takeoff.
Переднее крыло выпущено.
Nose gear or canards extended. nose cone extended. We can do our before taxi checklist. So the flight data recorded, we don't have any aircraft that's ready. Our control list and documents are on board. Batteries are on, generators are on, APU is off, doors and windows are closed, dampers are on, hydraulic system is on, flight control system is on, flight controls free and correct. Trimmers are neutral. The switches for the horizon are set. Brake is set. And we can give the taxi command. So we're ready to go. And the no takeoff light is extinguished, so we can turn on our nose wheel steering. And begin taxi, like I said, it's going to be Hotel 1, Tango 2. And with this aircraft, you want to overshoot the taxiway a little bit, or the taxiway marking, because remember, the nose wheel steering is going to be quite far behind your cockpit. So if you've flown an aircraft, say like a DC-10 or a 747, where the nose wheel is far behind the aircraft's actual cockpit, then this is going to be no stranger to you, but it's just a consideration. Here's Hotel 1, clear left, clear right. And we can come right, or left rather. Here's Tango 2. Go down a little bit. True FSX fashion, the aircraft requires a lot of thrust, about 30 degrees, 40 degrees of on the thrust levers to taxi, and that's just because the friction in FSX and these early FS 2004 FSX is quite high. It's not really the case in the newer simulators, but what can you do? We are now holding short of runway 3 to right at Bravo 8, so we can do our before takeoff checklist. So flight parameters, we got a takeoff weight of 198 tons. That's going to be, like I said, a VR of 255, a V1 of 255, a VR of 360, and a V2 of 400. We have 91.4 tons of fuel in the fuel system. Our APU is off. The packs are on, the altimeter reads 0, and our QNH is set on the foot altimeter of 1004. Our course is set 326, and it checks here with our position. The canards are extended, and we can retract the nose cone to 11 degrees takeoff position. And that's the before takeoff checklist complete. Let's just wait here for the nose cone to finish retracting, and we'll line up on the runway. All right, we're going to take the active, and we'll do some final preparations when we're lined up. Landing light can come on. And I was remiss of not mentioning, but our transition altitude is going to be 1,000 meters. So once we are above 1,000 meters on the QFE altimeter, the metric altimeter, we will switch to 1003 and 760 on use the whole runway for our takeoff. Alright, we are lined up. Final lineup checks. We go pitot heat to strong on both sides. And we can do our lineup checks. So trim is set to 9 degrees. The nose wheel steering is set to 8 degrees. The light goes off. Flight controls are true and correct. And we have our autopilot mode to manual control. No red lights. We are ready for takeoff, and now the PIC gives the command vzlyot. So take off, slowly apply the power. Gauge is nominal, takeoff thrust. Power set, brakes release. Поехали.
Скорость 160.
160.
200.
200.
250.
250.
Рубеж.
V1.
280.
280.
300.
300.
320.
320.
Подъем.
Rotate.
360.
360. Positive rate of climb, gear up. Pitch for 400.
Шасси и хвостовая пята убраны.
Gear up. There's 400 meters. Canards can come in. Watch the airspeed. Keep it below 440 on the climb. And we can throttle back to 85 degrees. Watch the airspeed.
Переднее крыло убрано.
And the canards are retracted, and the nose can come up as well. And the landing gear, cooling can come off, landing light can come off. Waiting for the 12 kilometers to come up. We're gonna go auto throttle on to maintain our speed here, 440. Waiting for 12 kilometers, and we can turn to Cartino NDB. And I'll turn on the autopilot here. There's 12 kilometers, Marchute LNAV, proceeding to waypoint 1. Lower the nose with the autopilot. Aim for about 10 meters per second climb. We are, and that's a happy takeoff. And we're gonna keep 440 below 10,000 for the time being, just to respect the 250 knot restriction below 10,000. After 10,000, we'll speed up to our climb regime here of 700 kilometers an hour, and then proceed through the climb regime window. Alright, crossing 10,000, no smoking, seatbelt lights can come off. We can lower the nose to capture our speed of 700 kilometers an hour here. I'm gonna disengage the auto throttle and put it in 70 degrees, which is going to be our assigned throttle angle here to accelerate. Put the aircraft in a nice shallow climb to pick up the speed. Keep the Alright, so we've crossed 10,000. I've turned on the no smoking and seatbelt lights, and now we're going to begin accelerating the aircraft to our climb speed of 700 kilometers an hour according to the climb schedule here. And for that, I've lowered our rate of climb just so that we pick up speed a little quicker. Because the aircraft, when it's in subsonic and high angles of attack, it's quite slow, has a lot of drag, so we want to make sure that we accelerate in a more expedient fashion, especially because we're burning a lot of fuel flying slow, low and slow. There's 500. Here comes 700. We can go to 70 degrees. Start the pitch to capture the speed and put the aircraft in a nice stable climb. In the meantime, we can also start shifting our CG aft for preparation for the supersonic cruise. There's 700. And we ride this line all the way up. We want to move the CG aft as far as it can possibly go. In the transonic region, a good target to have the CG at is about 45% of the mean aerodynamic chord, and that's what we're going to aim for here. And we're quickly approaching the transonic, supersonic regime here. At about 7,000, we're going to start accelerating, put the ramps to 85 and accelerate, and we want to make sure that our CG is configured for the transonic range, otherwise the aircraft can enter pitch oscillations that are very hard to overcome, even with manual control or autopilot on. Let's take a quick look at our other parameters. So fuel is flowing nicely, the CG here is moving aft, we're at 45, I'm going to move to neutral. We're at 81 tons. The engine gauges are good. The electrical system is good. Our pressurization is coming up. Our differential pressure is already at 0.5. Our limit is 0.72, and it'll ride up 0.72 once we get to that limit. Once we come up to this divot here, this break at 8,000 meters, that's when we put the throttles up to 85 degrees. And we'll keep it at 85 degrees through the transonic region. It's sort of like the Concorde's afterburner for going supersonic and then up to a certain speed. We got some storms building up ahead, but it shouldn't be too much of a problem. We should be able to fly over ahead of them. And this one up ahead, we can also just probably fly over. Shouldn't be a problem. Losing a little bit of airspeed, we can nose down, approaching 8,000. In fact, I'm actually going to deviate left a little bit here, just so we are proceeding away from the storm. So we'll make a left turn. We'll make a left turn to about 010 heading. So we're not trying to go supersonic inside of a thunderstorm. CG looks good. Nose down a little bit. We're past 8,000. We can go to 85% on the throttle. And now what we want to do is keep the aircraft nice and stable for the supersonic range. At about Mach 0.95, our airspeed indication is going to completely disappear because of the supersonic shock going over the pitot tube. And at that point, what I usually do is nose the aircraft down so we get through the supersonic barrier as quickly as we can. Because otherwise you can get stuck trying to overcome the sound barrier for a while. We're a little bit too fast, pitch up to capture the speed again. We don't want to be in the red range. Here's Mach 0.95. Pitch up a little bit more again. Mach 0.97. Back on the schedule, and the airspeed's going to begin to drop here pretty dramatically. There it goes. So what I like to do now is pitch down to about 8 to 5 degrees. There's 5 degrees on the pitch column. And here comes the airspeed back. We're overcoming Mach 1. We're supersonic. Regime here, on schedule, and start pitching up again. CG looks good. We can move it aft a little bit further. I like to rest it at about 46% because that's also a good position for the Mach 2 cruise. There's 46, go to neutral, and we can pretty much leave it as is until the cruise section. Looks like we're clear of those thunderstorms. I'm going to engage lateral navigation back to the nav channel. And it's going to bank very nice and easy to get us back on course. We have a literal course deviation needle here. Pitch the aircraft a little bit more. We're climbing through 37,000 feet now. Our target altitude is going to be around 70 kilometers, depends on the outside air temperature. We're aiming to go Mach 2, but at 120 degrees centigrade on the skin. We can go above 120 degrees on the climb, but we don't want to exceed 130 degrees for more than 5 minutes. That is a limitation. It's pretty stormy outside of Moscow today. Getting back on schedule. We're a little bit slow, Mach 1.3. See a few storms here. I'm gonna give us a course of 070 to avoid these 075 to avoid these buildups. We're still climbing. Mach 1.4. down just a tad. At 13.4, as you can see here, we will disengage 85 degrees when we go back to 80 degrees on the throttle. Mach 1.5. Mach 1.6, we are approaching 13.4 thousand meters. We're going to go to throttles at 80 degrees. And at this point, because of the non-functioning skin temperature gauge on the virtual cockpit, I am going to transition to the 2D cockpit. Here it's 13.4, 80 degrees. And switching to the 2D cockpit now. And we can see here our skin temperature is about 110 degrees. We want to keep climbing until we reach about 125, and then I'll hit Mach hold. And then we'll ride the Mach until we can go to a speed that would allow us to reach Mach 2 at 120 degrees Celsius. Or reach an altitude that would allow us to do so. Passing 14 kilometers now, Mach 1.7. We are at 0.72 differential pressure, and our cabin altitude is climbing. It's currently 1 kilometer, 1.3 kilometers. It's fairly benign cabin pressure. Can make another left correction here to 050. Lower the nose a tad. Mach 1.75. Passing that buildup to our left. Pretty high buildup, so that indicates there it's going to be some pretty severe convective activity. We definitely don't want to go inside of that, especially not at Mach 1.7, 1.8. Mach 0.8, 1.8. Passing Mach 1.8, 100 kilometers to our next waypoint. We're clear to build up. We can go ahead and call up lateral navigation once more. Skin temperature rising, 112. Still a bit below on the climb schedule. Lower the nose. Aiming for about 5 meters per second on the climb, so we pick up the speed. Mach 0.82. A hot day today, so I think we are going to be altitude limited at the or weight and altitude limited at the beginning leg. 120 degrees. Still climbing. Passing 15.5 now, slower. Mach 1.9. There's 124, approaching 125. I'm gonna go Mach hold now. Mach hold, and we'll keep climbing at this Mach number until we can get it below. We're at Mach 1.93. Let's try to get it below about 114 Celsius so we can accelerate to Mach 2. Might not be able to. We might have to ride at Mach 1.95 for a little bit. Let's climb here. Aim to keep our Mach number at 2. We can see now that the intake ramps for the engines to keep the intake airspeed below Mach 1, they have lowered, and we can confirm that they've been lowered by going into the flight engineers panel. And indeed, we can see here that they are engaged, and they're at 65-70% deployment. That's good. And the temperature is coming down, 118. We want to shoot for about 115, and then from there we'll see what happens. Still climbing at Mach 0.9 through 92 now. Okay, there is 114. Let's try to level off and accelerate to Mach 2. Level off. Turn on speed mode and increase our speed to about 840. It's 93, 94. Six. And if we overshoot 120, what I'm going to do is capture the Mach and just climb until we get 120. Accelerate more, 850. Coming up on Mach 2 here. Mach 0.99. 2, accelerate a little bit more. Mach 2, Mach hold. And let's pitch for temperature. Very slow climb, very slow. 500 feet per minute, thereabouts. Let's check our fuel flow. Right now we're doing 7 tons per engine per hour. That's about 28 tons per hour. So it'll get better once we get to our designated cruise altitude here, and as we lose weight and the aircraft becomes lighter, angle of attack decreases and the fuel consumption goes down as well. We've lost the coordinate corrections from the Moscow VOR, and we're going to wait for the Smena Canal light to come up, and that's going to give our next VOR to input on nav1 and to enable corrections for it. I assume we're going to have quite a bit of deviation by the time we get to Magadan. There are not that many VOR stations to correct our position, but considering the purpose of the nav computer is really to get us to a range of what I would consider an equivalence of our nav 10, then it's really not that big a deal in my opinion. We are Mach 2 at 120 degrees. We can now hold the altitude, and we are officially in full cruise. And if we call up our INS here, our distance to Magadan is 5,109 kilometers now, and our onboard computer here is telling us that we are going to get there at 18:41 Zulu. Current Zulu time is well, that's current Moscow time, I believe. Yes. So current Zulu time is 16:12. So that gives us a flight time of 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's at the current speed, of course. It's probably going to be a little above that. I'd say we'll be landing at about 1850, and we'll be at the gate at 1900 Zulu. But in the meantime, this is pretty much it for this first climb and en route segment. I will see you when I'm getting close to Magadan, and I'll pop in every once in a while to show you the fuel management and an example of the corrections coming up again, and how to deal with them and how they're handled by the navigational computer. See you in a bit. a discussion of the fuel system and the fuel balancing. As we can see right now, our number 4 tank is empty. That's the first tank the engines feed from. And now we are currently feeding from tanks 3 and 5. And we can see here tank 5 and tank 3. So the way this works is tanks 5 and 3 are going to be drained dry. Then it'll be times for tanks 7 and 6 to follow suit. Eventually, the only feeding tank that's going to have any sort of fuel in it, it's going to be tank 6. But we can see that we have quite a bit of fuel on tanks 8 and tanks 2. Not fuel in tank 1. However, we have fuel on tanks 2 and 8, but those are non-feeding tanks, remember. So we will have to most likely move fuel from those tanks to tank 6. And then it's kind of a juggling act of making sure that we have the fuel in the correct spot to make sure that we have the fuel available to the engine, but also in the correct spaces to keep the aircraft trimmed. So in my experience, you want to have enough fuel in the number 8 tank that the balance stays aft for the transonic and supersonic region, and then as you come down, you transfer all the fuel that's on tank 8 to tank 6. However, it's also good practice to keep a little bit of fuel, about 2 or 3 tons of fuel on tank 2, because when you're approaching for landing and you extend the canards, the need for the CG to be forward is quite extreme compared to the aft CG of the supersonic flight. So much so that having all your fuel on tank 6 might not suffice to put the aircraft in the forward CG range. So it's good practice to not consume all of your number 2 tank fuel, and in fact, if possible, transfer some of your number 8 tank fuel to number 1 tank, which you can accomplish by disengaging automatic control and turning on this switch to transfer fuel from tank 8 to tank 1. And you can see here there is a little bit of CG motion going on, and we can turn that off and move and keep the CG as is. That was just a simple demonstration. All right, back to the cruise. Welcome back. We're about 426 kilometers, 425 kilometers from Alikel, Norilsk Airport, and we can see that the Smyny Canal light has illuminated, which means that we need to set the next VOR DAB frequency for correction. So we pull up our FMC here, and we have 114.2 is our third beacon. We come up here, we set 114.2, and the light extinguishes. And right now we are still pretty outside of the range of the VOR, so when it comes up, we'll see the needle come alive, and we'll be able to go to Delta Z, Delta S, see our deviation, and correct it. Right now, we have 400 kilometers to the next waypoint, and according to our internal computer, we are about 3 meters deviated from the, I think it's either 3 or 30 meters deviated from our course. But that's definitely going to increase once we get our corrections here, get in range, and figure out how much we've deviated or drifted. All right, see you in a second. And as we just saw there, the VOR has indeed come alive, and so now we can go to our Delta Z, Delta S page, and it gives us our deviation from our presumed location. We hit enter. Corrections come into effect, and we go to our ZX, S, and Y page, and we can see that we have a 4 kilometer deviation from our assigned course, and we are correcting accordingly. And that's all there is to it. We're going to be overflying the Alikel VOR here shortly. One thing that I would recommend to keep an eye out is when you overfly the VOR, the corrections will disengage because you'll lose the signal by virtue of overflying the VOR, and as a result you should open the Delta Z, Delta X page and re-engage the corrections. Otherwise, you'll lose the benefit of the corrections as you're flying outbound from the VOR station. I'll demonstrate this in a bit. As we can see here, we're approaching our waypoint, 24 kilometers to go, so I'll show you the sequence of what occurs here. I'll pull up the FMC. We're coming up here on the waypoint. The MYNL light will come up here on the vertical annunciator lights. There it is, and at about 8 or 9 kilometers, we will sequence to waypoint 6. There we are, sequenced. We're going to overfly the VOR here. I'm going to lose signal. There it goes. And we've reacquired the VOR, so we can re-engage our corrections here. There you are. And you should do this every time you have a waypoint that is over a VOR. You're going to lose the corrections, so you need to re-enter them as you are begin flying outbound to, again, have the benefits of correction as you're flying away from a VOR station. Alright, we are at a halfway point of our trip. We can pull up active sky to take a look at the weather in Magadan. So the current conditions in Magadan, visibility of 2.6 kilometers, mist, overcast 300, temperature 0.05, altimeter 1017. QFE is 748, mountain obscuration in the area, so wind is calm, visibility is fairly low, but it should still be within minimums for the ILS procedure, so we're gonna push on. It's also fairly early there in Magadan. Dawn is still coming, so as the hours clock by, I believe the weather should improve. But we'll see when we get there. Alright. Alright, with that, I will catch you when we're about to begin our descent preparations. About 1,000 kilometers from Magadan. I'll start looking at fuel, the approaches, and the star into Magadan. I'll see you then. Waypoint 7 here. About to switch to waypoint 8, which is going to be our top of descent. There we go, cycle to waypoint 8. 600 kilometers for our top of descent. The airport is 1,120 kilometers away. We are estimated to land there in about 40 minutes. So let's take a look at our fuel situation. So as we can see, we're 23 tons approximately. If we look over here, that's about right. But as we can see, our number 6 tank is the last one with fuel. 4, 5, 3, 7 are out of fuel. We have fuel on tanks 2, 6, and 8. And right now, we wouldn't have enough fuel to descend and land just on tank 6 right now. So we need to transfer some of the fuel. I am going to keep tank number 2 as is. Actually, I'm going to decrease it by about 1 ton. And in any case, we do have enough fuel from our fuel consumption to land there. We're going to be there in about 30 minutes. we're consuming 20 tons an hour divided by 2, that's 10. That gives us a 12.8 landing fuel weight. That's acceptable. That's around what we were expecting. In any case, let's take a look here at our fuel balancing. Like I said, we can move some of the fuel on tank 2 to tank 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch manual mode, and we're going to do tank, we'll do tank 2 to tank 4. That moves our CFG aft a little bit, and that counteracts a little bit of the moment of moving fuel from tank 8 to tank 6. So we're going to move it right to the edge there of the divot. That's good. So now we have some fuel on tank 4 that's burning through tank 4 now. You can see through the green lights. And we're going to move some fuel from tanks 8 to 6 as well. And we can see here tank 8 is draining. We're going to pause at about 45 degrees of, or 45% of mean aerodynamic curve. Just to fuel up tank 6 a tad. That we can move some more of the fuel from tank 2 to tank 4 again. We'll leave about 2 tons of fuel on tank 2 for the balancing purposes. It should be more than enough. There we go. And then move some more fuel from tank 8 to tank 6. Oh, no, the other way around. There we go. There we go. That having been said, let's take a look at the weather in Magadan with active sky. Latest, this is the report from an hour ago, which was pretty bad. 500 meters of runway visibility on runway 10 decreasing. That would be below our ILS minimum. So I'm awaiting to see if we can get an update there. If we don't have an update in the next 200 kilometers, then it's looking pretty grim in Magadan right now. It's because of the fact that the airport is in a valley, and that probably bunches up the fog into this valley where the airport is in. I'll report here in about 5 to 10 minutes, see if we get an updated METAR. Alright, so here's the situation. The weather in Magadan, according to Active Sky and the information that we've gotten, is, it's actually improved. So it's 1,400 meters now, vertical visibility of 400, and it's improving. So this is above our minimum, so we will press on to Magadan. We will be there in about 25 minutes, and this was just issued 4 minutes ago, and so good reason to believe that things are going to get better. In that case, we are going to brief here our descent and arrival into Magadan. We will be executing the Turkey 5 Foxtrot arrival. We have this chart here. It's a chart for Magadan, Russia, or Magadan, Soviet Union. Uniform Hotel Mike, Sokol Airport, chart index 10-2 Lima, April 12, 2024. Altimeter will be set on hectopascal, and but we can also do QFE. They issued the QFE on the ATIS, or the METAR rather. So this is going to be an arrival into runway 10, which is the only runway with ILS, which we're going to need because the weather is quite poor still. We are going to be overflying Turkey at or above flight level 150 and proceeding inbound 148 to the Foxtrot 765 NDB, and that's set on our ADF1 or ARC1. We can set that channel 1 is active, and we can go ahead and set ARC1 is set here. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and set ARC2 as well. Oh, I don't have ARC2, that's right. We'll just have ARC1 set here, and this will be VOR1. Why the hell not? So we're going to cross the NDB at or above 7,000, and that leads us to our, and before we go to the next chart, the transition altitude is going, or rather the transition level is going to be let's see, what was the reported pressure? Reported pressure is 1017, which means that our transition level will be 1011 or 11,000. It's going to be our transition level. All right, and with that, we're going to go down to our procedure here, which we're going to shoot the ILS X-ray runway 10 into Magadan, Russia. Again, Uniform Hotel Mike, or correction, Magadan, Soviet Union. It's a initial approach fix is the 765 inner marker NDB. We're going to fly overhead at 7,000, then fly an outbound leg on 284 magnetic, descending to 6,100. After 5 minutes flying outbound at 6,100, we're going to make a right turn to intercept the localizer with a final approach course of 104 that's set up here in the course VPP, and the frequency is set on our second nav window, 110.3. And after intercepting the final approach course, we'll descend down to 3,600. We're at DME 9.6, which is going to be about 18 kilometers. We're going to intercept the glide slope and follow it down to our decision altitude of category D, 310 feet. That's 93 meters. That's set on the radial altimeter. And our limiting RVR is 750 meters because we do have flight director on our attitude indicator, and we'll go over that once we are beginning to shoot the approach. When we land at Magadan, the runway, it's a single runway. It's going to be a fairly easy taxi. We're going to aim to vacate the runway by taxiway 4, and we'll park at the stands immediately adjacent to taxiway 4. Again, the weather is quite poor. I imagine we're going to be doing the entire approach in the weather, and we'll only be punching through at the very end since we have vertical visibility of I think 200 or 300, something like that. So quite poor weather. We're going to have to do it as a coupled approach all the way down. This can do category 2 approaches, and so we're just going to let it fly all the way in on autopilot. And that's about it. It's going to be a hard approach. The way we're going to do this is overflying the NDB. We're going to slow to 400, deploy the canards, and then turning inbound. Or we're going to overfly the NDB at 400. Then on the outbound leg, we'll slow to 340, deploy the canards, lower the nose cone to the landing position, and then turning inbound, we'll slow to 300, and intercepting the glide slope, we'll slow to 290, which is our fixed approach speed for all weights. And that's the brief. I think that's it. So let's get ready. Top of descent here in about 47 kilometers. So what we're going to do here is immediately upon reaching the top of descent, we're going to start nosing the plane down and reducing the thrust lever to 45 degrees. Let's take a look at our fuel as well while we have time. We're quite low on tank 6. Going to have to transfer some of that fuel to from tank 2 to tank 4 to balance out the fuel here. Let's do that now. Manual control 2 to 4. We're going to have to go down to about 1 ton on tank 2 here. Let's move the CG aft. Alright, we can turn it off and move some more fuel to tank 6. And as we slow below Mach 0.9, we can move the rest of that fuel forward. That should be enough to get us through the descent. Alright, there's our top of descent, and we're going to start nosing the aircraft down, pitching for 800. 1262. And we can go back to 45 degrees. Contact Magadan Center. So for now, we're still burning through tank 4. That's going to inevitably move the CG aft, which works in our favor, and then it's going to start burning through tank 6. And then we'll slowly inch some of that fuel forward as well. Actually, what I can do is move the fuel from tanks 2 all the way to tank 4, and then once we're descending, I'll just move some of the fuel from tank 8 to tank 1 or 2. So we'll do that actually. Manual control 2 to 4. We're gonna empty out tanks 2. So we have a nice cushion here. Here we go. 2 is empty. Neutral, automatic. Close the panel. And we are on the profile coming down. 337 kilometers to Turkey. We're slowing down. We're already Mach 1.8. At about 10,000 meters, we go to idle, and that's going to make sure that we are good for fuel. We can move the rest of the fuel to the nose of the aircraft into tank 6. A little bit behind, we can nose down further. Again, descending down to 7,000, then 284, down to 6,100, 104 inbound, down to 3,600. While we're descending, we can go ahead and take a look at our descent checklist as well, now that the aircraft is stabilized on the descent. So descent checklist, neutral gas for the fuel tanks is on. Charts have been looked at. We have 16.5 tons of fuel remaining. Our CG is under control right now. Our landing speed is going to be 290 kilometers an hour. ILS is set, course 104. The NDBs are set on the ADF. And that's it. That's the descent checklist complete. Weather pretty socked in today here in the early morning in the Soviet Far East. Here we go. We're getting back on the line, slowly but surely. Pitch up a little bit more. CG still looks good. Back on the line, back down. Slow into 1.3. And that's a reminder, we want to be at or above flight level 150 at Turkey, which is in 200 kilometers. We can also take a look at our flight director now. We can engage it here. Category 1 and 2 are good. And the light comes on. Goes down a little bit to get more on the profile. Pass comes back okay. So now that this is armed, we have the flight director on our attitude gauge here, and we can enable course and glide slope once we have the localizer detected. Again, it's going to be 110.3. Slowing down, Mach 1.1. Pretty soon here we're going to be able to move all that fuel forward. Mach 1.05. There we go, passing through Mach 1. The airspeed drops, and there's a little oscillation here in the pitch. That's normal. Leveling off now, we can start putting the nose back down to capture the speed again. Crossing 10,000 will slow to idle on the throttles. So we are now one big airliner. Just a big airliner. Let's take a look at the CG. CG looks good. Fuel looks good. Getting back on the line. Ask the controller, aka Active Sky, for the altimeter setting at Magadan again. And the visibility is further increasing. It is now 1,700 meters, haze and mist, overcast at 400 feet, so well within minimums. And the altimeter is 1017. We'll go ahead and set that on our altimeter here, just so we don't forget. No, we'll respect the transition level at 11,000. Wow, we're a little fast, coming back a little bit on the gauge. Crossing 10.6 now. We'll go idle in just a bit. Slowing to Mach 0.9. And pretty soon the gates for the CG are going to move way forward. It's getting a little hot in here, so gotta turn on the fans. By right-clicking, you can turn them on. There's Mach 0.9. Right at 10,000 meters, and we can go idle now. Idle on the power. Let's look at the CG gates. They're still right there. And we begin slowing down quite dramatically now that we go to idle. And we start ditching down accordingly. Mach 0.8685. There goes the gates, so now we can move the CG forward. And we now begin to descend really, really fast. Oh, a little wind shift there. I'm going to keep the transfer going here. What I'm going to do, actually, while we hold this attitude here, I'm going to go back to the Flight Engineers panel and make sure that not all of Tank 8's fuel is going to Tank 6, but rather some goes to Tank 1. In fact, I'll go do that now. We're well within CG parameters. I'll go disengage and move some fuel to Tank 1. And as you can see, because Tank 1 is at the very nose of the plane, what that does is it moves the CG quite a bit forward with very little fuel. You see I've moved maybe 1 ton of fuel. That's quite enough. We can turn this off, back to automatic, and keep moving the CG forward. There you go. And tank 8 is now empty. And we have all of our fuel in tank 6 now, I believe. Yes, that is correct. In fact, I'll move in a little bit of fuel from tank 6 to tank 8, and then from tank 8 to tank 1 again. There you go. And if we check, we now have a good amount on tank 1 and 2. Tank 6 has plenty. And we have 15 tons total. Perfect. A little fast, we can pull back. 24,000, we want to be above flight level 150, as we said. Mach 0.75. See if we can radio identify our localizer when we get into range. We're outside of the range of the NDB still, but we should be picking it up here fairly shortly. Again, it's 765 on channel 1 of the ADF. That's set. Okay, we can now slow down to 550. Very high pilot workload on this aircraft. Of course, this would have been a crew of 3, maybe even 4 pilots, but there's only one of me, and there's only going to be one of you either, or 2. There's only going to be one of you too, so you need to be ready for this kind of workload. There we go. Coming up to 550, still at idle. And distance to our aerodrome is 100 kilometers now. Pretty hilly out here. Descending into the mountains on a foggy morning here. We're getting close to the airfield as well. What we can do is switch from cruise mode to aerodrome mode. We got to make sure that we have the right magnetic variation here set. So our current magnetic variation is 11.1. So we go to 11.1, positive 11.1. That's good. And we can switch to aerodrome's magnetic. There we go. Now we're proceeding 148. Just what the doctor ordered. Crossing 15,000 here in just a sec. We're gonna shallow out our descent here, hold the speed, and pitch up to respect the crossing restriction here of 15,000. There's 15,000. We're a little early, but that's okay. Just 10 kilometers, 11, 12 kilometers early. That's perfectly acceptable. I can live with that. That's going to increase our fuel consumption, but we should still be good. And we still have 14 tons of fuel remaining. And we'll keep the auto throttle here engaged all the way down. There we go. Crossing over Tekri right now. I'm gonna go slow to 400. And pitch the aircraft down for the 550. And now we're proceeding to the aerodrome itself, 64 kilometers. Still no joy on the NDB. And we're going down to 7,000. Well, it's an outer marker, so it's probably a little far away. We'll fly in on inertial and wait to pick up the NDB. Try to get the altitude here again. Actually, I have to slow to 450 here on the descent to comply with the 250 speed restriction. Magadan approach 1240. There's our transition level. We can set altimeter 1017 now. Here we go, down to 7,000. And there's our NDB indicating over there to our right. We have to correct now then. Let's go to heading mode and fly direct to the NDB. That's going to be on heading 180, it seems like. Below into 082, we got a westerly wind, so we're gonna have to correct to the right here a little bit. We gotta slow down here to 450 since we're below 10,000. I'll go ahead and set the navigation to the ILS. Slow here to 400. Right a little bit. 182. We're at 8,000. 1,000 to go. Next heading will be 284 at 7,000. Looking pretty socked in. Pretty socked in. $7,500. I suggest you level off the aircraft a little early because it is quite lethargic at the leveling off, where the autopilot is very smooth, so that means that you need to really anticipate your level offs and such. I'll click the button here at 7.1. Here we go, 7.1, level off, 400 kilometers an hour. Inbound to the NDB, and we have the localizer and glide slope here. We're live on the gauge. And the flags go away. The next speed is 340, and once we are level, we can actually go ahead and lower the nose cone down to the 0.9 position, or the 11 degree position, since we're below Mach 0.9. Waiting for NDB passage. Let's see how far we are from the airfield. 25 kilometers to go. We're a little early. The airfield is somewhere down there in that valley, amidst all that cloud. There's Magadan down there, right on the money. Looking like the airfield is pretty clear from the looks of it, no traffic, and big old clearing right on the airfield. So that bodes well in our favor. There we can see the airfield right about here, and we're about to cross over the NDB, and we can start down for 6100. Our outbound leg is, if I recall, 5 minutes. Yes, that's 5 minutes. Waiting for NDB passage. Here it comes. We're right over the NDB, because our middle marker is going off. Alright, we're going to fly outbound here for a few seconds to give us a little bit of room. If we turn to our 284 immediately, we're going to have a really tight turn to enter the final. So we'll fly here for about 20 more seconds, and then we'll turn right 284. We can go ahead and descend to the 6100, however. We'll slow to 3400, or 340 rather. Slow to 340, there we go. And we can go ahead and turn 284. Once we level the wings, we'll deploy the canard. We can go ahead and deploy the rest of the nose cone. Extend the landing lights. And strap everyone down. Should have done that at crossing 10,000, but that's okay. Coming up on 6600s, we can lower the nose, or raise the nose here. And I'm gonna press the level off button about 100 feet early. As you can see, we got a lot of nose up for the low speed handling of the aircraft. Okay, level off and deploy the canard. Canard extending, and the airplane fights a little bit because the control attitude is changing quite substantially now. We're actually flying up a little bit, but it'll correct itself out. Canard deployed, alright. And we'll turn in about 4 minutes. down a little bit because we level off at 63. Lower the nose some. Slow down at 340. There we are. Pretty bad weather. To go. Had to level off. We overshot a little bit because I was getting vanity shots outside. We can go ahead and enable the course and glide slope master modes, and that enables the flight director as well. Turn in 104. Set a 1014 and then engage the flight director down at 3600. Guidance here now. There's our course. Still got to descend some. We're still high. Our glide slope intercept is at 18 kilometers, so we still got a ways to go. Steepen our descent some. Slow to 300. There's localizer. Coming up on the localizer capture here. 600 to go. And the glide slope's coming alive. We're on course. Actually, we are going to go down, proceed, because we're a little high. So, slow to 290 and deploy the gear. We're a little high on the approach, but that's okay. We can engage the glide slope guidance now. Okay, we are 300 meters, so we're still good. Ways to go. We're on speed on glide. Alright, we are on speed on glide. Looking good. Proceeding down to our minimums. 100 meters. Or 90 meters rather. Distinctly in the soup.
250 метров.
250.
Скорость 295. Тангаж 7. 200 метров.
200.
150.
150.
Скорость 300. Тангаж 6. 100 метров.
100. 90, but we're going to continue. This is category 2. It can take us down to 30 meters.
60.
60. There is the runway.
40 метров.
Disengage the
30.
autopilot. 30,
20 метров.
20,
15.
15,
10.
10,
5.
5,
3.
3,
Метр.
1. Touchdown.
15. 10. 5. 3. Метр. Метр. 20 метров. 15. 10. 5. 3. Метр. Метр.
Below 350, parachute out.
250.
50, we can start braking.
200.
200,
Скорость 160.
160. Welcome to Magadan. Nose wheel steering on. Absolutely hair-raising approach, but that's okay, we made it. And on time. We're gonna taxi to parking in front of the terminal. We can go ahead and turn on the APU. And taxi to the front of the terminal here. Alright, we can retract the canard. And we'll take a slight right turn here and just park in front of the terminal. Get ready to shut down.
Переднее крыло убрано.
Okay, we can go ahead and raise our nose cone. Put the APU bleed on. APU on the bus. Open the APU and have it feed the bleed system, and we got 10 tons exactly, basically. Okay. And now APU is on the bus. We can go ahead and shut off the engines. Turn off the generators as well. The rectifiers, ground power can come on as well. And from here, we can shut off our lights, attach the ramps, and welcome to Magadan. So, dear viewers, I welcome you to Magadan, and for what was absolutely an exhilarating flight there at the very end. Very high, very tense approach, I must say, and but it worked out in the end. And hopefully this shows this is a display of the capabilities of the aircraft, and with this video tutorial, explanation, guide, whatever you want to call it, you too can fly this plane to the limit as the hydraulics come off, and no doubt the wing is now going to begin drooping because the hydraulic system is not being powered. But anyway, hope this was informative, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you around. Пока.